I didn't even ask if you were ready to get unbothered yet, and you're already kissing me. You must really be ready today. You gonna do a sound check? That's not a proper sound check. Come on. I love you too, but you need to do a sound check. You need to be professional. We're not gonna be professional today? Let's get unbothered.
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unbothered by Ty Rivera. That's right, it's Unbothered by Ty Rivera. I messed up the intro. I'm your host, Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. You know what? We're going to soldier on, and we're going to stick to our rule of no edits. It just is what it is. I've told you guys, the only time I do any edits on this podcast is one, if baby girl goes too nuts, and then I have to edit something out because she's... Every once in a while, because we have this rule where... I don't tell her not to play. You've seen the one time that I told her not to play was when I was recording the one where I was eating the dragon fruit for the first time with you guys. And then I told her to stop. But usually our rule is that when she wants to play, she can play. And when she wants to play with me, that's something different, because sometimes she'll start wrestling with my arm during an episode or whatever. And I'll usually, if you notice, a lot of times I'll let her for a while, and then all of a sudden I'll get like, babe, go, you gotta stop now. And right now she's getting on my lap. But, I don't really have a lot of rules with my dogs. I never have. And I know people have these weird things well, not weird. For some people, it's very normal. And I don't judge anybody, when people are like, I don't let my dog kiss me on the mouth or whatever, like that kind of stuff. I get it. But for me, my dogs have always been babies to me. And so if my baby wants to give me a kiss, my baby's going to give me a kiss. That's what it is. If the time I stop them with the kisses is every once in a while, baby girl will try to actually lick in my mouth. And then Bijou would do that every once in a while too. And that I don't allow because it's just gross. But, I wouldn't allow a regular baby to kiss me on the mouth like that. But, just as far as giving me a quick kiss on the lips or whatever, my babies are allowed to do that. I'm not going to tell my little dogs that they can't. Sometimes they get a little too lovey-dovey, though, and I have to get like, all right, let's slow down. I'll get you. I know you want a TREATS. I know that's what you want. So let me get you one. Or you want, yeah, you guys know what I'm saying. I put an S. I pluralized it because... Honestly, that too. It's never one with me. I just don't work that way. I don't know. I wanted to talk to you guys, and right now it is 5:54 a.m. on Saturday morning. And I've told you guys before, I record my podcast whenever it hits me. Like, this is the kind of podcast, because it's truly a conversation with myself. I have to be in the mood to actually do it, because it is just me talking. And even though I know I don't have any real pressure to, unless I'm really thinking about something where I need to remember something, which you guys have seen me do before, I try not to have any dead air on my podcast because I think it's boring when somebody's just like, and I try not to do a lot of filler words or verbal stutters or whatever it is. Not verbal stutters, you know what the term I'm looking for, but like verbal tics, like when you're doing an or I try not to. I'm getting better and better at that. But again, it's unbothered. So I just talked to you guys like I talked to my friends. But what I was thinking about just the other day, and I almost recorded it right when I felt that way, but I had something I had to take care of. So I was like, I had to put that off, even though I wanted to do it right at that moment. But there was a quote that a friend of mine posted on her, Jen is her name, and I love her. She has a YouTube channel, and I don't remember the name of it. On the Block with Jen or something like that. And she's also from the Bronx, but she has told me before like long before the scandal broke about J-Lo not really being from the Bronx, you know, she's from like, I guess kind of the outskirts of the Bronx, or a nicer part that's not really the Bronx. But she had told me a long time ago, she was like, I'm actually from the Bronx. My friend Jen, you know, she was like, I'm actually from the Bronx. I'm not like J-Lo, where they say they're from the Bronx, but really they're not from the Bronx. And I really, really like her, and she's so great. But she posted, shared something on Instagram one day that really stuck with me, because for me, it is true. And I don't remember the exact quote, but I'll tell you guys basically what it said. The quote was something like, everything that you have now, you once wished for. And it was reminding you to stay grateful. And for me, because I know not everybody's in that position, you know, like some people have had, you know, rough situations, and I've definitely had rough points in my life. I've talked to you guys about that. But really, almost everything that's ever happened in my life, whether I ended up liking it or not, was something that I wished for at a point. And I was thinking about that because I was a little annoyed with my apartment, you know, because overall I do like my apartment. I've told you guys that before. But me and the baby are ready for a house. That's part of our situation, or something we own. A townhouse would be fine. It doesn't have to be a full house, but you know, like we're ready to own something. And so, but I'm on a lease here, and so I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm having to pay for a mortgage and pay rent here because this isn't over, you know. So I'm trying to wrap everything up the right way. Plus, you got to find something you like, you know, because ideally that's where you're gonna live. And I've told you guys before, I don't have any plans of leaving Phoenix or Arizona. And you know, I would never say never, but I've told one thing that I will not go back on is I'm not leaving before my parents leave. So with that being the case, it's just like I've got to find a place that I actually like enough to, you know, to want to live there, to want to like stay there for a while, you know, because obviously if you have a mortgage and you're buying something, then that's what it's going to be, you know, that's where you're going to live. And so there's that too. And so, but like I was frustrated because I really, really, and I've talked to you guys about this before, but I really, really hate the washing machine here. The washing machine is the worst. It really is. Just, I've got a little rip in my shirt right here. I don't know if it's picking up or not, but there's a little rip right here, and it's from the washing machine. And like a lot of my clothes have gotten little rips in them, and some things I've just thrown away now because, and I like, I don't care in a way where it's like, you know, like I like my clothes, you know, I love my clothes. What, puppy? Are you gonna come up? If you want to come up, come up. But I gotta do stuff, so it can't be up and down today. It's like not gonna work out that way today, baby girl. I told you guys, I hate when she does that to me, because it's like, if you want to stay up, but you don't be jumping up. Like, and like, I'll tell you what bothers me about this little girl is she's really good at jumping vertically. She's great at it. She hops really high. But for some reason, she has not figured out how to jump on and off the couch. So she needs me to pick her up. And I've tried to bribe her with CHEESE and get her to, because that's one thing that she goes crazy for, because this little puppy is not food driven. With Bijou was very much food driven. Any kind of treat I would give her, she would do anything for a Klondike bar. But this little dog is not like that. Like but that's the one thing, CHEESE is the one thing that she will actually do stuff for. And she's made attempts to get on the couch, but for some reason she just can't put together the diagonal of it, you know, like that's what she can't put together is the, and so I'm working with her on that, which most people again don't want their dogs on the couch, but I'm not that way, you know. I would prefer that she be able to get on and off the couch, because if she wanted to get on and off the couch throughout my entire podcast, I wouldn't care if she was able to do it for herself. But you see, I have to bend over and pick her up, and it's like, just stop taxing me, lady. That's all I'm gonna say to this little dog right now. But what I was talking about was the washing machine. It's ripped a lot of my clothes, like left little holes in a lot of my clothes. And I feel like I have too much of certain things, so that's a part of the reason that I don't mind. Like, it's helped me get rid of socks. Like, my sock drawer is actually ridiculous. Underwear, I have so much underwear that, like, when that gets ripped, I'm just sort of like, okay, good, then let's get rid of that pair, you know? So I'm not tripping off of it, but at the same time, I do sometimes get like, well, if I really like something, then I guess I should take it to my mom's house to wash it. And the drum doesn't fill up with water. And my mom has one that's high efficiency, and it's, you know, like a super, super new machine, and it doesn't fill up with water either, but it does a really good job of washing your clothes. This one doesn't fill up with water, and it doesn't really do a good job. Like, with clothes, it's fine, but if I wash, like, you know, this blanket, I just washed it tonight, you know? And like last time I washed it, it had like the mildewy smell. And so, you know, I had to wash it again. And so it's, you know, so that's annoying. And there's just certain things that I don't like about living here, you know, or about living in a place that I'm renting. And so the other day I was feeling kind of ungrateful. And so I remembered that quote, and I remind myself of that quote quite a bit, you know, because I do think it's important. If you want to do better in life, it's great to, you know, aspire to do better than you're doing now and to want to be upwardly mobile. All of that's great. I would never discourage anybody from doing that or wanting to do that. But what I would be careful of, and I have to remind myself to be careful of, is being ungrateful for what you have now. You know, like saying, I hate the place that I live. Well, if you're in a situation where you have a nightmare roommate, or maybe there are things that are constantly breaking and going wrong, then I could understand you feeling that way, and I would not begrudge somebody that, because you have a right to feel that way. But when it comes down to it, every single thing in my apartment does actually work. It is a nice apartment. It does have all the space that I need. I have a very comfortable room that I've set up as a studio. I've told you guys before, that is a dedicated studio. Like today, I had to use a trick that I learned from, I don't know if you guys have seen, there's this YouTube creator that's like a Mexican lady, and she teaches people how to clean, and you know, like house cleaning tips or housekeeping tips. And she, in all of them, it's like the Mexican way, you know, that's what is in the title. I'm not just saying that it's the Mexican way, like that's the way she titles it, you know, where it'll be like how to clean the film off of your shower doors, you know, your glass shower doors, the Mexican way, or how to clean your stove or make sure your stove, you know, doesn't get stained, the Mexican way. And so the other day I was watching one where she was talking about like toilets and bath tub. It was that, you know, just bathroom in general. And she was saying that a lot of times you're using the wrong tool for things, and that you should stop paying attention to the flashy stuff on the aisle and just go to basics, because that's what old school women used to use, like back when, I'm not being like, you guys aren't stupid enough to think that I'm being misogynistic or whatever, because you know, because like that's the perspective she's coming from. Like that's kind of her, even it's part of her catchphrase at the beginning, you know, when she's doing her intro is she'll be like, these are secrets that mothers used to hand down to their daughters, and kind of the thinking like that chain has broken, and so she's trying to fill people in on how to keep your house and like not have to spend a lot of money or waste money is really what she's about. And I'm all about that, because I am the person that will go buy the newest thing because I hear that it does this. And I'm going to tell you guys, as a person that's lived that way for a long time, I've really learned my lesson, because a lot of the things that they advertise do not work, except for Goo Gone. Goo Gone is absolutely amazing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Goo Gone, but it takes the sticky, the tacky adhesive from like stickers and stuff like that off. And I swear by it. I will never not have Goo Gone. But outside of that, a lot of things that you try, especially bathroom cleaners, kitchen cleaners even, don't do what they say they do. They're beautiful packaging, and it's really cool. Like, if you're a person like me, like for me, that's almost like the grown-up version of toys. And I think I get that from my dad, because my dad is a person that, like, if there's as seen on TV, my dad's that guy. And he has like a bunch of levels, like laser levels and things like that. Like my dad, and I love it because I get to try it out. If I ever want to try something that he buys, he's fine with it. My dad's great with me, so I can try it. But I know that that's a part of where I get it, is because my dad, if he thinks something's cool from like TV or whatever, he'll do it. But I'm not a person who orders things like that. In most cases, there are certain things I order, but a lot of times I will get caught up with the I'll see an ad for something and I'll be like, that looks cool. What does it do? And supposedly it gets your bathroom cleaner. CLR to me, I don't know what your guys' experience has been with CLR, but CLR has always been a waste of money to me. I tried it like twice where I actually bought a container of it, and each time I either threw the container away or gave it away to somebody else because it really didn't do anything. But my point is, I never use the bathroom I shouldn't say never. Very rarely do I use the bathroom in my office, in my studio, because the way that I have my apartment set up is it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and I have the bedroom that would technically be like the secondary bedroom as my bedroom, because as I've told you guys before, I usually sleep right here on the couch. And I was doing better for a minute there, where I was making a point to go to my bed, but then I just decided why. I don't particularly love it there. I don't hate it when I sleep in my bed, but and I'm not that person that since I'm single, I'm not gonna sleep in my bed. No, Margie. It is not even that kind of situation over here. It's just I'm more comfortable on the couch for whatever reason, and baby girl is tiny, and I'm not big myself, and so me and baby girl sleep on the couch together just fine. And I don't know why she's growling right now, but I wish she would stop. Why are you mad at me? I didn't do anything. I'm petting you too much. Kids, I love them. That's from Beetlejuice. But anyway, but yeah. So what she was saying was, because since I very rarely use that bathroom, once in a while I'll have to pee before I record a video and I'll use it for that. But I use it so rarely that it got a hard ring in the toilet because I never flush it, I never use it. Now I'm gonna make it a point to scrub it out and flush it every day, at least once a day, so that doesn't happen again. Because that did bother me, because obviously I see it and there's this black ring that's you can tell is a hard, and I tried using toilet bowl cleaner and it didn't. And I'm not gonna completely swear off toilet bowl cleaner, I think it has its place. So in the bathroom I actively use, which would be supposedly the what would you say, like the public, not public, like, the common area bathroom is what I would call it, which is my bathroom. The other thing that I use the bathroom in the studio for is for actually doing my hair. Like because if you notice, I've been wearing hats a lot, and it's because I'm growing my hair out, and I'm gonna dye it again and everything, but not like in the way where people are so weird about that sometimes. And I don't mind that people comment on different things, because I accept that I'm a public figure. And here on Unbothered, though, I like that you guys have a very real relationship with me, but I don't mind the people that have the more just go to the main channel and that's their relationship with me. I'm fine with that too. But sometimes I think people think I do things out of insecurity, or I do things because for other people. If my hair would go all the way gray, just be gray, I'd be fine with that. And if it even went a nice salt and pepper, I'd be fine with that too. But it doesn't get enough gray to give me a full salt and pepper. So what it does is make me look like I've just let go, like I've just given up. That's the way I feel about the amount of gray that I get. So every once in a while, but like I told you guys, I don't have a weird insecurity about it or something like that. It's just I get okay, it looks kind of like I'm not taking care of myself right now. So let me do something about this. And so then that's when I'll either color my beard or color my hair or both, But sometimes, a lot of times I do it in section, because I spent so much of my life actually doing that, because it wasn't about caring that way. It was just about, being in show business. You always want to look kind of stage ready, especially if you're doing stand-up comedy where you're always in front of people, or at least that's the way I always saw it. And so, I would just go to this guy. There was a guy I went to forever in West Hollywood. His name was Leandro, and I really liked the way that he cut my hair. He gave me a Karen that was out of this world before it was the actual Karen, A lot of people had the Karen before Kate Gosselin, and it really became the Karen, a lot of people had that haircut. It was like a cool haircut. But yeah, he would do, and that's been a theme throughout my life, my adult life, was going to Asian stylists. He was Filipino, and then for quite a while there, I went to a lady named Esther that worked at a Korean salon in not Hollywood, Mid-City, I believe that would be considered. And I really loved the way she cut my hair too. She was really great, and that was a high-end salon, but it was Korean, and so it was almost all Korean, and they specialized in K-pop type hairstyles, so if you wanted a lot of layers and feathering and that kind of stuff, that was great, and I really did love the way Esther would cut my hair. But here, I had that lady that I told you guys about that ended up, I think she got mad at me eventually when she was being too nosy about my personal life, and I finally had to put the kibosh on her and just be yeah, I'm done with all the questions. Talk to me about the weather, talk to me about what's on the TV right now, because she always had a TV playing, and it would be Inside Edition a lot of times, or things like that. And I'm completely fine to talk about any of that stuff, and I'm even fine to talk about myself to a certain degree. But sometimes I don't need a lot of talking, and especially probing, because I don't care, obviously, because that's what I do for a living, is I talk. But I think that's a part of why I'm the way that I am, because sometimes when I'm out in the regular world and I'm paying for a service, I just want to shut down a little bit. A lot of people have stress when they go to the dentist, and I don't at all. I've been going to, when I was younger, I was born, or My teeth, when they first developed when I was super young, were like super, super crooked. And my mom was not having it. You know, she just wasn't gonna, like, there was no reason for it. And so, it was such a process, though, that from like the age of 9, probably, I was in dental appliances. Like, I had a molar spacer at a point, which like looked kind of cool when they took it out, but it was like it didn't come out. You know, it wasn't like a retainer where you take it in and out. It just stayed in. And it had these brackets, and it literally was there to space your molars, you know. And so there was like a kind of a screw type thing in the middle, and they would tighten that or do whatever they had to do, like to so that it would spread my molars, you know. And then I was in a contraption called the Frankel for quite a while there. That one came in and out, like I would take it out to eat, and so there was that contraption as well. And then braces, and you know, I was just always at the dentist office or the orthodontist, and so I'm very comfortable at the dentist office, but I'm so comfortable there, and that light is so relaxing to me, like that. It's so relaxing to me that when my teeth are being worked on, I literally will, and you know, just recently, well, you know, like maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, I had to get one of my teeth, it's a crown, and I had to have that replaced after the last one came out. And I can't remember if my 2 front top teeth are both crowns, or if one of them's a crown and one of them is still my tooth. I don't know. I think they're both fake, to tell you the truth. But the other one obviously was years ago, and it's just fine. But you know, this most recent one was like 3 years ago. And when they were doing all that, I would just lay back and like kind of go into a trance, because I don't fall all the way asleep. I'm just sort of like almost like a trance state. That's the best way I can describe it. I just look into the light, and look into the light, Carol Ann, look into the light. But I just look into the light and I just zone out, and it's very relaxing for me. And so, but it's a similar situation with getting my hair cut, you know. But the thing that bothers me about that now, and what I was trying to get to, is I do things in sections now, where like I'll dye my beard at one particular point, and then if I decide I'm gonna dye my hair, then I'll do that on another day. And I prefer to do everything at home, and I do use professional products though, because I have a really good friend that is from the same town that I'm from, even though we didn't know each other when we were there years and years ago. But we met in Vegas and really became friends in Vegas. But Angie Crum is her name. She's a comedian. But she did stand up for a while. Right now she's not doing stand up. But she was like she's my friend that will send me stuff, you know. So and obviously I send her money, but you know, I'll just tell her, like, you know, I want a really dark black, I want high quality, I want it good coverage, you know. And so she'll, you know, just buy it for me and send it to me, and it's all professional, and that way I don't have to deal with like quote unquote box dye, you know, because that, you know, has been a headache for me in the past. So I stay away from that. You know, I did it for years, but you know, like when I was like intermittently, I would do that because, like I said, for a long time I was going to that guy Leandro, and we had our thing where it was like every 3 weeks or something like that, and we just make the appointment appointment when I was leaving for the last one, and I was on the road quite a bit. But there's certain days, especially like back then, because when I was using him was when I was touring with Joe Coy, like a lot of the time when I was touring with Joe Coy. So the schedule was very predictable. Like I always knew that Tuesdays and Wednesdays, unless there was some strange gig that we were doing, like a club that we were doing that did like a Wednesday to Sunday or whatever. But then Joe, because Joe became so successful, like right now, if you're paying attention or Joe Coy, he's absolutely killing it right now. Like, he's sold out the Coliseum in LA, and he's just really been killing it. But when I originally started working for Joe Coy, because I was featuring for him and then open and feature for him too, he was it was when he was right on the verge. Like it was a really cool thing to witness, because I remember when we did our first couple of gigs together, and I know he wouldn't care about me saying this. I know he would think that this is it's kind of like I said, it was a cool thing to see, and I'm sure it was a cool point in his life too. Like him living it that being his reality, was when I first went on the road with him, the first couple of weekends we did, because like the first thing I did with him was San Jose. And that's always been a good market for him because there's so many Asians in the Bay Area. And even though San Jose isn't technically the Bay Area, most people kind of consider it the Bay Area. And it can definitely draw the Bay Area audience, like from San Francisco and all those surrounding areas, because the Bay Area is a pretty big, it covers a lot what's considered the Bay. And so, Oakland, San Francisco, Alameda, there's like so many, like, kind of that area. And so, but San Jose was always really great for him for his entire career, even kind of when he was first starting out. And so San Jose was great. And so then the next thing he hits me with was one day I was downstairs, because I used to live at this place called Villa Lane that was known, it was in Hollywood on Fountain and Vine. And it was really well known. I think they're either redoing it, or I don't know if they tore it down. I hope not, because it was known for having this really, really beautiful, well-kept courtyard. And it was in Hollywood, which Hollywood is kind of dingy, like as much as people try to act like the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, what they're talking about, or we're talking about, I hear it's all gone downhill now. But what they were talking about at that time, because you used to hear about that in like the early 2000s, the 90s. Whenever you heard people talking about the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, what they were really talking about was West Hollywood. West Hollywood is the nice part of Hollywood. And really, and it's its own city, like it's the city of West Hollywood. But that's a lot of times where they would photograph celebrities and stuff like that. So it's not really like Hollywood proper, like Hollywood itself is pretty dingy, Hollywood, yeah, the clubs are there, like if you're like, no, that's still West Hollywood, like, Sunset and that area or that part of Sunset. It's when you head east that it's like Hollywood Boulevard, and that, which I liked it, I mean, like I did like living in Hollywood or being in the Hollywood area, in East Hollywood, or what some people would call East Hollywood. I like, technically when I was living there, that was when I lived on Franklin and Beechwood, which was like right down from the Hollywood sign. But we had this really great deal because my roommate had, like, she got it from somebody, like somebody gave her the apartment. Like she was a roommate, and then they were like, we're going to move out of here. Like if you want it, it's rent control, and you're right in Hollywood or right down from the Hollywood sign, and you're not going to be able to beat it. And certain things are old, but it's a great spot, and hardwood floors, and a pool in the back. But it was an apartment, definitely an apartment. But it was like maybe 4 or 5 units, something like that. It wasn't a huge building at all. It was tiny and nice, and I lived there for 4 years and I did enjoy it. That's one of the few roommate situations that I actually had, was when I was living there. And my roommate at the time was a high-end nanny, what they call an elite nanny. And so she had worked for the longest situation that she worked for that I knew of was the creators of Malcolm in the Middle. And they're super, super loaded. And I didn't ever meet them or anything like that. I met their kids because she brought them over one time, or a couple of times she brought them over. And I don't remember their names. They were two young girls. They were two little, little girls at the time, like between 9 and 11, those ages. And they just said hi, and they were nice girls, but so and then different celebrities. I don't think I can mention any of them just because it's what's it called? I think there is some sort of confidentiality type thing, but with that particular family, it was very informal because she worked for them for so long and they just liked her. And like I said, I had no connection with them or whatever, so nobody could ever come back on them and be like, this comedian named Ty Rivera that does all sorts of edgy stuff on YouTube says that he knows you. I don't know them. I would never claim that I know them. They don't know me. We've never met each other. I just happen to know that I had a roommate that worked for them for a very long time. And so she had gotten this really great deal on this apartment where when I was living there, and this was unheard of in Hollywood even at that time, or especially in that location, but I was paying like under $600 a month, and it came with a parking space. It was amazing. And total, we were paying like maybe $1,400 or something like that. And so, because it was like 2 bedrooms with a den, but the den was being rented out by another comedian. And we were pretty cool for a while there. I wouldn't mention his name though, because we stopped being cool at a point. And I don't have hard feelings, but at the same time, I would never have an interest in talking to him again, because he did turn shady and annoying towards the end. And if anybody ever stumbles across this and they're like, I know who your roommate was, and I'm going to tell him, feel free to tell anybody absolutely anything I said. They all know how I feel about them. Not too long ago, I'll tell you guys this. Somebody hit me up and said that they had been talking to somebody, and that this person, I used to be cool with or whatever, and they had said that they no longer talk to me. I guess because of my politics and stuff like that, they no longer talk to me. And I was just like, when did they have an opportunity to stop talking to me? Because I haven't talked to them in years, and I don't talk to anybody. When I tell you guys that I don't talk to people, I'm not a phone person or anything like that, it's really just not the way I live. So when people try to make it seem like they have these active relationships with me that they've chosen to opt out of, it's like, we never had that relationship anyway. The only way that you would talk to me or I would talk to you is if I saw you at a place that we were performing together. But one, I haven't been performing at all for at least a year now. I think the last show I did, I did a show in between here and there, for Leonardo and stuff. Yeah, so that would be the last one. Most recently was Leonardo, and that was probably 8 or 9 months ago. But for me, my show, I want to say that was in August of last year, maybe even July. And, maybe at some point I'll go back to live performance, but not anytime soon. But my point is, these people don't have access to me. So when they're like, I don't talk to Ty anymore, it's like, well, when was your last opportunity to talk to me? Did you really take a stand and decide that you weren't going to talk to me anymore when I made no effort to talk to you, and there would be no way of proving or like of exercising your boycott of me. Like I the nerve of people, to try to make it, because it's annoying, because it's like you have to build a relationship in your head with me and then cut it off, and it's like, okay, but we never really had that relationship, But what I was saying about Joe Coy, I always find my way back, if you notice, except for sometimes I don't, and then I'll notice when we're watching together and then we're doing a live chat when we're not talking about food. But you'll notice that I do find my way back. And what I was saying about Joe Coy was that we went to San Jose, and then one day I was downstairs. There used to be, what was that restaurant? It wasn't Mexican. It was pupusas, so El Salvadorian. And they made a really, really amazing bean and cheese burrito. It was so amazing. And then they changed owners, and that sucked because they didn't keep the recipe, for the beans. The beans were it was beans and cheese. It was like the white cheese, and it was just the perfect ratios, and they put just enough manteca, lard, in the beans to make them taste perfect. It was amazing. I loved that place. And I never forget, I would go down there and eat. And I never forget, one day I was down there eating, and it was after me and Joe Coy had done San Jose. I had worked for him in San Jose. I'm very clear about that. I worked for Joe Coy. It wasn't like we were just working together. He hired me as his feature, and that was the beginning of that work relationship, was San Jose. But then, so I thought maybe it was just a one-off, and I was just going to work with him the one time. That was all he was going to ask me to do, and I was grateful for it. It was really great. It was a great situation. He was very nice to me. And so I was sitting down there eating a burrito, and I get a call, and it's Joe Coy, and he was like, hey, I just wanted to find out if you'd be interested in going to Guam. And then I was like, yeah, of course. And so he was like, cool, I'll go ahead and take care of your flight. Just, I think his sister might have been handling things at that point. Whoever handled things was had sent me an email, and then told me, like, I had a couple of choices as far as the flights went, like what time of day was going to work best for me. And, I wasn't one to like pretend to be busier than I was. At that time, I was doing a lot of stuff in Hollywood, but I was still a new comedian and still doing a lot of open mics. And so my real way of going at that, like working for Joe Coy, was just to be as easy as I could be in the beginning, because there was a point where things changed for sure. And I don't know how much I'm going to get into that right now. We'll see where I end up in this conversation, because I don't know where I'm going. I don't have a plan, in case you guys haven't noticed. Like I said, I just talk, we have the conversation, and it ends up where it ends up. But so he asked me if I wanted to go to Guam, and I was like, yeah, of course. And I was as easy as I could be about the scheduling and stuff like that as far as my flight, because like I told you guys, I really didn't have anything else going as far as stand-up and that kind of thing, and nothing bigger than what he was offering. And it wasn't offering a lot of money, but it was good money, it was decent, and I appreciated it very much. But then when we get there, we have to do these shows together, and they sold out, because what I was going to say is, outside of San Jose, because Joe wasn't that big yet, or well known yet, he was kind of worried about different places, where he'd be like, I don't know how this is going to sell, or I don't know how this is going to go, I don't know. I remember him asking the managers at that point, the managers of the clubs, like, how are ticket sales, like that kind of thing. And that only lasted a couple of weeks of my working with him, because like Chelsea Lately was just becoming a big thing. and his Comedy Central, it's like he had a perfect storm, because his Comedy Central special at the same time got released, and it became the biggest Comedy Central special up until that point, like the most popular. And so he really did become super, super well known and super successful, like right in that first couple of weeks that I was working for him. So I got to see that actually happen for him, from going to like worrying about the numbers or wondering how it was going to go to like everything was just selling out. Like everywhere he went, it would sell out. And I was working for him, so I got the benefit of working for those audiences. But the thing that was really cool about Joe Coy and that time we went to Guam was the reason I brought the money up was because I was going for okay money. It was very cool of him to offer me that in the first place. And then we're there, and after night one, the next day, me, him, and his sister were in his hotel room, like all just chatting, hanging out or whatever. And he had to handle a situation because like the shows in Guam were so packed it was held because they didn't have like a real venue for it. And so it was held at a really nice hotel there. Sheraton is the brand of hotel, but it was a really nice one, like the kind that people do honeymoons at and stuff like that. And they had like this big, like conference room or something like that. And it was only supposed to have like 300 people in it. This is all no lie. This is none of it is me exaggerating. It was only like capacity was like 300. And literally, they packed in 600 people. It looked like a bomb shelter. I mean, not a bomb shelter. Like when there's a flood and they just send people to those kinds of things because there were people lined up on the sides. It was a fire. It was a fire hazard, was what it was. But nobody knew it was going to be that popular. Even the bookers didn't know. So Joe, because obviously we did the 2 shows the night before. We were doing 4 shows, 2 on the Friday, 2 on the Saturday, and then flying back. And during the day, I was hanging out with his sister. His sister was there. Gemma is her name. And she and I always had a really good relationship and would hang out quite a bit when we were on the road. It was perfect. She was, because sometimes you meet people on the road and they'll be like the sibling or a family member of the headliner, and they'll kind of go out of their way to other you, to try to make it like, oh, this is my brother and you're just the kind of the help type. And that's the way they'll treat you sometimes. But she was never like that. Always super nice to me and would like ask me if I wanted to do things with her, like go to lunch or, I'd hang out with her. Some trips I'd hang out with her more than I hung out with Joe, because with Joe, we'd do the shows, but he would want to do his thing, go shopping or sleep or whatever he would do. But we hung out a lot when I was on the road with him. So it wasn't like one of those situations where I had some like far removed relationship with him there either. But my point is, we were all hanging out in the hotel room, and he went out on the patio to take a phone call. I don't know if it was with his agent. I don't know if it was with the bookers. I don't know who it was with. All I know is that afterwards, I joined him on the balcony, because he went out to the balcony to take the phone call, and then he called me out, and then, his sister, I don't remember where she was, if she went to the bathroom or if she was just hanging out in the room for a minute or whatever she was doing. But when he invited me out on the balcony, he was like, hey, I just want to tell you, I'm doubling your pay. And so that was amazing, because like I told you, he was already paying me well for being there. And to find out, that never happens, to find out when you're actually there that he's going to double my pay. And it was because since everything sold out, to the degree that I told you, because like I said, I wasn't exaggerating, and it stayed that way. And I think the fire marshal did actually come in, and I don't remember what they did on night 2, and it might have been like the late show night 2 or whatever. And so they kind of turned a blind eye what I think happened, because they didn't change anything. There wasn't like there was a point where people weren't allowed in or whatever, or they had to refund tickets or they weren't honoring. But, since everything sold out to that degree, Joe was being generous, feeling generous, and he stayed generous, like not as generous as he could have been, but nobody's ever going to be as generous as they could be if you ask me. Which is half me joking, but kind of me. But he stayed cool with me. Joe was good to me. But like that was very nice of him to double my pay, because it's just not something that usually happens, when you're already out there. And because he's getting more money, he's cool enough to be like, well, you should get more money. If I'm getting this much, then yeah, you definitely deserve, but I was earning my money because the way that it worked, because it was so packed, and people there are on island time. Guam is a lot like Hawaii. They're very similar, the people even, and the ethnic makeup of the people is also very similar. And so they're on island time as well. So everybody shows up late, later than they should, or later than you would want them to, especially if you're me, because on those shows there was no official host. So I was the host and the feature, which if you guys remember, I think last week I was talking to you about that. The feature goes up second, and then the host is first, and then the headliner, obviously, in a traditional, what they call a 3-man show, which is the most traditional version. And so Joe would have me do open and feature so that I could get, more money is the way that it worked out, because then you're being paid for 2 jobs. But on that one, I really was earning my money because everybody would come in so late that I would be performing each show. I would kind of get thrown to the wolves, and I was newer. Like I told you guys, I was pretty new at that time, and I had done like a lot of open mics, but I hadn't, done a lot of professional shows, and especially not shows like that where it's like I would walk on stage, people are just filing in, and then half of it is like, people there, but like half of it is people coming in. And so my set was like, the servers were taking drink orders. Some people went to the back to go buy their drinks because it was set up, like I told you guys, kind of like not banquet style, but like, in the conference room type thing. So you've seen the way that works when you're in a nice hotel and they have like these conferences and stuff like that. And they'll have like the bar set up in the back. And so it was like one of those situations. And so I had to work through all of that. So people are getting seated. They're being shown to their seats. They're getting organized. They're getting drinks. Like all this stuff is going on. And I've got to host and feature. So doing like 30 minutes and just trying to like keep my composure, and not in a bad way, like where I was getting frazzled or whatever, but just like, that like I said, I wasn't used to any of that, and I knew that I was being paid. And then on day 2, I knew I was being paid even better. And so I wanted to do a good job at it, and so that's what I was doing, was like, keeping my composure, not getting upset or getting frazzled in the moment, and just and then by the end of my set, because since I'm host feature, then Joe goes up after me. I've got to bring him on stage. And so by the end of each set, though, I had them laughing and chill and settled and ready for Joe Coy to get on stage. And that's how I ended up really working for him, because I ended up working for him for a year and a half. And that's how I earned my way into working for him, was these, I lied. The first thing I ever did for him was South Point Casino, and then it was San Jose, and then it was Guam. And then I think it was Miami after that. I think that was Miami next. And Miami was still one of the ones where he wasn't sure what the turnout was going to be, but it turned out to be sold out. And I remember Miami being such a fun weekend, just everything about it was fun, the shows. And that's when Joe told me, because he was very clear with me about what was going on, because I was new and he had been in it for a while and already done Tonight Show and already done plenty of stuff, like he wasn't like, he was working all the time and making good money. He wasn't, famous yet or like what he is now. But he was, definitely established. And I remember him telling me in Miami, he was like, I'm going to give you 1 year. I'm going to take you everywhere. I'm going to introduce you to as many people as I possibly can. And then once that year is up, it's going to be someone else's turn and you'll be on your own. And so, and there was a point where he asked me shortly before that, he had said, look at my calendar on my website and then tell me which dates you want to do. And then he was like, I don't care which dates you want to do. Just tell me which ones you want to do and you can do them. And I came back to him like later that afternoon or whatever, and he was like, did you look at my calendar? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, what dates do you want to do? And I was like, all of them. And he was like, really? And I was like, yes, all of them. And he was like, you're crazy, but if you want to do all of them, you can do all of them. And I was like, yeah, I want to do all of them. And he was like, okay, well, plan to do all of them. And so then Miami, like I said, was when he told me what the deal was, like, that for a year he was going to give me. And I ended up working for him for a year and a half. And, we had a very real relationship. It was like, people had these rumors that Joe was gay or whatever. I think it was just because he was raised with sisters. And so he wasn't like, like, he wasn't overly macho or whatever, but like I never got gay vibes off of him, and we never had anything going, like that was one of the most annoying things to me. And I had to check a comedian, I won't mention his name, but I had to check him about it early on when I was working with Joe, because he asked me, he was like, hey, I heard Joe's gay. And he was like, is that why you're working for him? Is he gay? And then I was like, no, he's not gay, because like, one, I didn't get vibes from him, like I said. Two, we didn't have that kind of relationship. And three, I had seen like his girlfriends, and he has a wife or had a wife before, and they were divorced by the time I was working with him. But a child, which that could be like a beard and whatever else, but it just wasn't the case. He isn't gay. And this particular comedian like thought he was kind of cornering me about it. And that's when I was like newer and you could say more wholesome and a lot nicer and not trying to step on toes. And so I was being polite about it when he asked me, and I was like, yeah, no, that's not, Joe's not gay. And then he was like, yeah, well, I heard, and that's like one of the beginnings of me like snapping on people, because I did tell him, because in my regular life, like I was a bitchy twink when I was younger, so I was very comfortable in that space, but I didn't carry my gay life into the comedy world, as far as me interacting the way, like I accepted that I was new, I accepted I was working my way up, and I accepted that you would catch more flies with honey than you would with vinegar. And so I had always been cool with people, and this guy was an established comedian as well, and so he pressed it with me. And I just looked at him and I said, well, obviously there's a particular answer that you want, and I'm not going to give you that answer, because that's just not the experience that I've had with Joe, and that's also not what I personally have observed. So if you're looking for that answer, I suggest you find the person that's going to give it to you. And I did tell him just like that, like wording may have varied just a tad, but that's what I told him. And I just remember him like backtracking, like getting like, oh no, I didn't mean anything, like I was just like saying. And I was like, yeah, well, we got it. And I think we both feel each other. We both know where the other's coming from now. You asked a question, I answered you. That's where it is. And yeah, it was a great experience working for him, but we did have a very real relationship, like it was a lot of because when you're on the road with somebody for a year and a half, things are definitely going to get real at different points, but like none of that matters, like it was not, I don't hold hard feelings over anything, and Joe has always let me know that if I need him, he'll be there. And this is, I think, maybe what led me down this path, like as far as talking about this, is the idea that people have, that they have these relationships with me that just don't exist, where it's like I said, like telling people that they don't talk to me or whatever like that. And it's like, well, what opportunity would you have to talk to me? Like, that's what people don't understand, is I know people on that level, like Joe Coy, Gabriel Iglesias, Russell Peters, like I could name Tim Dillon. I mean, like, there are really big comics that I'm friends with, or I've been friends with throughout my life, that I don't sweat, that I don't call, that I don't keep in contact with. So when there's these people like this person that if I mention their name, you would not know it. And maybe you could Google them, but I don't think anything would come up outside of basic social media. Like, just they have an Instagram, they have a Facebook, it's like that. And it's like, what makes you think that I would want to have any kind of relationship with you, when if that's what I wanted, like status or to show connections to industry, then I would not talk to you altogether. Like, you would not be a route to go. And so, don't ever let anybody lie to you and tell you that they have a relationship that they don't with me. That would be the point of this. Stay unbothered.